events capture the whole world's attention, fewer still hold it in the era of mass media. In the Middle East, men who have ruled for decades, gone in days. From regional superpowers to wealthy Gulf states, all have felt the impact of the death of a penniless fruit seller in a small provincial town in the heart of North Africa's smallest country. Ultimately, Tunisia reflects a universal truth. One person who is not afraid to die can start a revolution, but it is only when hundreds and then thousands have lost their fear that a revolution becomes inevitable.
The world is still trying to understand exactly what the revolution here in Tunisia really represents. For the West, this was a liberal movement that achieved for the Arab world its own Ceausescu moment, the getting rid of a hated dictator and his family. For people in the region, this is proof positive that ordinary people can overthrow a regime. For Tunisians, the reality is far more complex.
Internet, Facebook, Twitter, they were logistic support. They were not the revolution.
This regime was like, it's like a cancer.
في الحقيقة احنا الشعب التونسي لم يتعود على سماع القصص.
I saw people dying. I saw a guy shot straight in his heart.
أي واحد شهيد مات الحق حب يدافع على شعب حب يدافع على تونس.
If there is one lesson for autocratic rulers across the world, it is not to ignore your subjects, however insignificant they might seem. There is a tragic symmetry to the story of this revolution. The most powerful man in the country brought down by one of the most powerless.
والله محمد ولدي معناها إنسان بسيط، إنسان معناها باهي، سلوكه طيبة، متعاطف معايا ومع خويانه، يخدم معناها في مورد رزق، أجل عاش يتيم، خلاه بابا عمره معناها 3 سنين.
Mohamed Bouazizi started selling fruit at the age of 10 to support his family, later giving up his own education to send his sisters to school and then university.
اللي يبقى الماضي ساعتين ماضي 3 متاع الصباح يروح يمشي يرقد من با ساعتين 3 سوايع زيد يفيق من جديد غدوة الصباح وديما يشجع فيا على قرايتي ديما يهز لي في المورال نتاعي ومورال العائلة الكل ديما يواسي فينا ديما يصبر فينا والحمد لله.
Mohamed Bouazizi was not the first young man to take his life in the country's impoverished and forgotten south. But the way he was treated by the local authorities on the 17th of December had a resonance for all Tunisians.
أنا الصباح نهار الجمعة الصباح مشيت نسعى نخدم معناها في الفلاحة البرة وطليت على البيت متاعه وهو نلقيه راقد نوم عميق قلت له والله يعاونك يا محمد ولادي.
يقوم الصباح كيما سيور الايام كيما الايام كل ايام يمشي يهز الشريول يعبي الخضره من المارشي سنترال ويمشي معناها يمشي يقص على الكيس الرئيسي معناها راهو تاجر متجول.
Mohamed had applied to the town hall for a license to allow him to set up a permanent store. When this went unanswered, he applied directly to the presidential office. There was again no reply. Instead, the regime took the little he had. On Friday, the 17th of December, Mohamed was stopped by a municipal officer and her 3 colleagues. She confiscated his fruit and the scales he borrowed from a friend. According to his sister, she insulted his dead father and ridiculed his lowly job and appearance before delivering a blow which was to echo around the world.
كي هو حب يحمي الميزان نتاعو ما خليتوش وضرباته بزوز كفوف. كي ضرباته بزوز كفوف محمد جاته كالشوك. محمد جاته شوك قويه، صدمه قويه برشا، لوين عينيه دمعت وزراق، ضرباته بكفوف معناها مراه امام الخاص والعام في كياس رئيسي.
People in Sidi Bouzid were used to the demands of the police and local authorities, the traditional rashwa or bribe, without which nothing and no one can operate. But Mohammed had no money to buy back the confiscated scales. 3 times he went to the town hall to plead for their return, and 3 times he was turned away. At 11:30 a.m. he came back for the last time.
خذا معناها واحدة متاع ليسونس وهز الشريول بقية اللي بقاله معناها من السلعة، هزها وحتى أمام مقر الولاية وجاب الليسونس صب على روحه، طلع على الشريول وصب على روحه كي جبد البريكية.
The crowd drawn by Mohammed's protest included his cousin Ali, who arrived too late to stop the final act in the tragedy.
قام بالتوجه إلى وسط الطريق هنا وسكب على نفسه البنزين وكان موجود هنا وأحرق نفسه هنا.
He'd come to petition the government here to ask for some help, but they didn't let him in, and he then went into the middle of the road, put benzene on himself and set himself alight.
ثم شكون نحى البلوزون تاعو وحاول باش يطفيه.
He was saying that I mean there were few people around, and there was one man with a jacket who tried to put the flames out on Mohammed, but it was too late.
It's too late.
This is the scene filmed by Ali on his mobile phone moments after Mohammed set himself on fire. Even in these extreme circumstances, manifestations of public discontent in Tunisia were rare, and Ali understood instantly the power of the images he had filmed.
لأن نحن كنا واثقين إنه قبل نحتجوا ونضربوا من طرف عوان الأمن ويقع تفريقنا وما يسمعوناش، لكن بالإعلام هو يمكن إنك توصل أي حاجة.
Sidi Bouzid might be geographically isolated, but the internet had wired its residents to the world. At 6:47 p.m., Ali posted the video on his Facebook page.
ندركوا تماما نحن اللي يلزم الإعلام يلزم نكسبوا الحرب الإعلامية، لأنه احتجاجنا إذا كان ما يخرج من تونس راه ما يسمع به حد. مثلا أنا دخلت شخصيا في قناة الجزيرة فردوا رد معناها في الحكومة، قالوا راهم هذوما مجموعة من المارقين.
As night fell, Mohammed Bouazizi's story and the images of the rioting that had followed passed into the data flow of social networking sites, and from there onto international satellite channels. On the 17th of December, however, there was no reason to think this would be anything more than just another largely anonymous chapter in Tunisia's recent history. After 23 years in power, President Ben Ali had become a master of state repression, adept at controlling the message and crushing dissent. This might not have been the dream of the generation who had won independence from France in 1956, but it was their legacy. In more than half a century since the French departed, only 2 men have ruled Tunisia, and neither contested an open election for the job. The country's first president, Habib Bourguiba, a flamboyant provincial lawyer who had fought the French for decades for the right of Tunisians to choose their own leader, had, once he was that leader, become less tied to the concept of democracy.
Il y a 2 Bourguiba. Il y a un Bourguiba réformateur, moderniste, qui a fait le choix volontaire et volontariste de bâtir un État moderne fondé sur la sécularité, sur la séparation des institutions de l'État de la religion. Le problème des droits de la femme, du rôle de la femme, de l'égalité entre hommes et femmes, le code du statut personnel est un qui est important. Et il y a eu en même temps le Bourguiba autoritaire, qui ne tolérait aucune critique, qui avait un appétit de pouvoir extraordinaire, qui a estimé que, après tout, la Tunisie, c'est une poussière d'individus.
By 1975, after 19 years in power, the second Bourguiba was firmly in control, making himself presidents for life, formalizing what had long been the reality.
La fin du règne Bourguiba a été un naufrage, le naufrage de l'homme. Il y a eu la montée de l'islamisme avec le phénomène de l'Algérie qui était inquiétant, l'islamisme dans la violence, et Bourguiba, se fondant sur ses convictions sécularistes, laïques, etc., a refusé d'accepter toute négociation avec quelque islamiste que ce soit, en faisant l'amalgame, tout islamiste est un terroriste. Et ça a débouché sur les confrontations des années 80.
In 1984, Tunisia erupted into violence. Bread riots started in the southern town of Gasrine and spread across the country, leaving 50 dead. Bourguiba recognized he needed men he could trust around him, strong men. A then little-known former head of military security, Zine al-Abidine Ben Ali, was made director and then minister of national security.
Why? Bourguiba was old, almost senile. We needed at that time someone in the Ministry of Interior very strong. I mean, there is a problem of order. Bourguiba, he needs someone in this position so he can stay a little bit longer.
2 years later, Ben Ali was made interior minister. Even for those who knew him, his rapid promotion came as a surprise.
Ben Ali is his classmate. He's from the same regiment than me. Ben Ali did not talk much. He would spend an evening with you here, I mean, everybody. He would not say more than 3 words. He would smile, nice, but he wouldn't talk. He was always listening because of his job, maybe.
Bourguiba was not alone in underestimating the quiet man. In October 1987, he made Ben Ali prime minister. A month later, the quiet man spoke.
He gathered 11 doctors and asked them to sign the papers telling that Bourguiba is no longer in good health to run the country. And by constitution, at that time the prime minister would become the president, he became president.
After 30 years of one-party rule, the public euphoria was unconfined. Ben Ali's first public act on the 7th of November was to pledge to dismantle Bourguiba's state.
À partir de ce jour, plus d'injustice. À partir de ce jour, plus de présidence à vie. À partir de ce jour, plus de confiscation par un parti de l'ensemble des institutions de l'État et de quadrillage de la vie politique. J'ai fait partie des gens qui ont pris ce discours au sérieux.
The 8th of November, he went to the office of the prime minister, and one young girl said, Yahya Ben Ali, life forever. And he went to her and said, don't say Yahya Ben Ali, say Yahya Tunis. Tunis forever. And it's extraordinary, really. It's unbelievable today.
Bourguiba was to live another 12 years, able to die in the country of his birth, still remembered fondly by many, a privilege afforded to few deposed autocrats. For the Tunisian people, the honeymoon with their new president was to be brief. The signs were not too difficult to spot. Bourguiba's new Constitution Party was rebranded as the Constitutional Democratic Rally, known by its French acronym RCD. The political freedom Ben Ali promised was also short-lived. Those imprisoned under Bourguiba soon found themselves again facing jail.
Notre engagement a été trahi parce que très vite, on a vu s'est imposée la réalité de la naissance d'une nouvelle dictature, avec du surcroît une évolution de l'entourage de Ben Ali qui a fait que les pratiques mafieuses se sont installées. Et personnellement, ça a duré entre 1993 et 1995, et je l'ai payé par une nouvelle détention.
The post of President for Life had been officially abolished, but Ben Ali ensured that the principle continued, changing the constitution to allow him to stand again and again and again. A generation of Tunisians were to grow up under Ben Ali's paternal gaze.
In the newspapers, on television, in the radio, it was always about what Ben Ali did today, what Ben Ali is going to do, who did he meet. So the Tunisian citizen was like living in a perfect world with its God, which is Ben Ali and his family, and no one had the right to say that anything is going wrong.
The youth now are fed up of everything. We lost everything. Some people has no view of the future. They didn't project themselves in a future in Tunisia, so they only think about going abroad.
Strong government, no opposition, a limited or non-existent press. A situation familiar across much of the region. For dictatorships to survive, they have to be seen as benevolent. For Tunisians, this benevolence consisted mainly of a high level of education, Bourguiba's legacy, and one of the strongest economies in Africa. For the new generation, however, this was no longer enough. Both education and the economy had shown themselves to be hollow promises.
Our parents wanted to believe in the system, and they wanted to build a country where everybody can live properly and raise their children and send them to school, etc. And they did it. We were good at school, we are good workers, we are organized, civilized, and we're living under mafia. We were living under mafia, and there is no hope.
Ben Ali's mafia was to be his undoing, but in reality, he had little choice. Without popular support, he needed to buy loyalty from somewhere. Despite being a former military man, he had always seen the army as a threat, relying instead on those around him to keep him in power. The elite of his 2 million strong RCD party, and increasingly, the family of his universally loathed second wife, Leila Trabelsi. These people needed to be rewarded for their loyalty, and the natural result in a country not blessed with mineral wealth was corruption.
كنا نحلم بأن نكتب عن الفساد، ولكن أين ستنشر هذه المواضيع؟ كانت كلها مرتبطة بقطاع واحد، هو قطاع العائلة المالكة. كل موضوع له علاقة بالعائلة المالكة أو غيره لا يمكن نشره، لأنه في نهاية المطاف لو تمكن من النشر فإنك ربما تتسبب في إغلاق الصحيفة، في معاقبتها.
Control of the media had long been Ben Ali's key priority. International satellite channels that reported unfavorably on the regime were banned, but the arrival of the internet created what was to be an insurmountable problem.
Il y a eu Al Jazeera, c'est vrai qu'il y a eu et toute une campagne a été menée, orchestrée par le gouvernement contre Al Jazeera, en disant que Al Jazeera, elle invente des faits ça, et alors pour la blogosphère, ils n'ont eu aucune prise, les sites étaient interdits, etc. Mais il y a eu un effet au mouvement d'information, extraordinaire, et là, ça a été la panique au niveau du pouvoir. Parce que notre système d'information, c'était verrouillé.
These censored websites became the real famous websites in Tunisia. A blogger that, with a blog which wasn't censored, isn't really a blogger, you see. And we called ourselves the gangsters bloggers and the affluent bloggers because the state knew us and blocked us, and people and boys in internet, when they see Ben Ali blocking someone, they knew that this someone is a guy who's telling the truth.
Era 404, the message indicating a blocked site became a badge of honor for any blogger and a signpost to those interested in seeking the truth in Tunisia. In trying to control the messenger, Ben Ali lost control of the message.
On ne pouvait pas en parler ni dans la presse, ni dans la télévision, etc. Les gens partout, dans les ateliers, dans les usines, dans les lycées, dans les cafés, n'avaient que des informations, des rumeurs sur le développement à un rythme accéléré de l'enrichissement illicite et des pratiques mafieuses au plus haut niveau du pouvoir.
For Tunisians, officially facing 14% unemployment but unofficially twice that, these revelations were explosive. On the 7th of November 2010, the anniversary of Ben Ali's coup, the Tunisian rapper Hamada Ben Amour, aka El General, delivered an open message to the president, intended as a plea to rein in the mounting corruption of his regime.
يعني هذا اليوم 7 نوفمبر خرجت أغنية اسمها رئيس البلاد، فهمتني؟ يعني ميساج لمسيو البريزيدون، فهمت؟ حكيت فيه على المشاكل نتاع الشعب، على القمع، على الاستبداد، على الظلم نتاع الحكام، فهمت؟ حبيت نعطي ميساج، فهمت؟ للي سرقوا البلاد، فهمت؟ للي نهبوها، خلاو الشعب التونسي ضحية إجرام متعمد من قبل المسؤولين.
Into this already tense atmosphere came WikiLeaks, publishing a confidential report by the former US ambassador Robert Godek, describing the overt kleptocracy of the Ben Ali regime.
WikiLeaks had its importance in the sense that it showed to the world what we were living in the everyday life, but for us, we didn't need WikiLeaks to know what's happening.
A great majority of people believed that Ben Ali and that system had been just students of American. And these leaks demonstrated that first, USA doesn't care about that country. And for us, it was good news.
The US government's apparent indifference to Ben Ali's fate may have been only a small issue, but it added to an increasingly powerful tide of events against which the regime was now swimming.
Cette conjugaison des trois facteurs, de la contestation sociale, de la contestation politique et de la contestation des pratiques de corruption et des pratiques mafieuses, a connu un retentissement d'autant plus grand que le phénomène de la blogosphère et de la communication, des nouvelles technologies de la communication ont fait que ça a circulé de façon extraordinaire.
Tunisia was primed for revolution in December 2010, when Mohamed Bouazizi's act ignited it. One man's sacrifice may have begun the revolt against the regime, but it was the events that followed in nearby Gazrin, the town that had started Ben Ali's rise to power 27 years before, that would make revolution inevitable.
هي أن أرى شباب ولاية الجزرين مقنوص بالرصاص وملقى على الأرض. ذلك المشهد الرهيب، مشهد لا يكاد يغيب عن عيني للحظة.
كانت الناس كلها تأسفت للمشهد هذا، وخاصة مشهد حرب، هي بالفعل حرب وبالفعل مجزرة صارت في ولاية القصرين.